You're listening to Beyond Insights, your go-to podcast for all things accounting, business, and technology.
From cybersecurity and AI innovations to sustainability and work-life balance, we've got you covered.
We host insightful guests from different backgrounds, industries, and locations all around the world.
From this diversity of thought, we aim to find solutions to some of our most pressing business problems.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive right in and go beyond insights. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Beyond Insights. I'm very excited to have a guest that you probably know very well from Beyond Insights, but today she's here for a different reason. So today we're going to actually talk all things business books and things we can learn from them. And the one thing that we can learn is adaptability, so we'll give you that 1 point there, because today we were not supposed to be interviewing Alex. We're supposed to be interviewing another amazing person who we will interview later on. But natural things like Hurricane Helene made that not possible. So we are being adaptable and very excited to have you, Alex. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be on the other side of the interview for a change.
Yeah, we can grill you instead of you grilling everyone else. So a bit of background about Alex. If you watched our first episode, you probably know a little bit about this, but Alex actually has 2 English masters and is busy writing her second novel. That's correct, right? So she is a very wordsy person, which for me is just amazing because I am not a wordsy person, as you can see by the words that I'm putting together now. But someone like that working at an accounting, software business is always so interesting. But with all of Alex's amazing, writing and reading, she loves to read books. That's correct, right?
That is definitely correct.
How many books do you read usually, like often?
A lot. Probably about somewhere around 30 a year.
Okay. I know once we went on a trip to Cape Town and you finished a book in the flight basically. So she reads a lot. And obviously working at an accounting software company, Alex reads business books as well. So today we've decided that we're going to ask Alex to share some really cool insights and learnings from her top 3 business books that she has been reading. So to start, the first one we're going to look at is 0 to 1. So this is actually a book that pretty much most new joiners at Syft get when we join. And so we're all supposed to read it. So any of the Syft people who haven't read it, here's a chance to listen in. But yeah, can you tell us a bit about the book? And yeah.
Well, sure. Thank you for that really complimentary introduction.
True.
I appreciate it. And yeah, the first time that I saw 0 to 1, I got it in my welcome box. And as Jodilee said, I did not come from an accounting background, had no experience working in software either. And I thought, great, they've given me a book. I'm going to use this as my instruction manual. This is how startups work. And I feel like that book makes a lot of sense in the Syft context. Obviously, we're a lot bigger now and we're at a different stage than we were when I joined back in 2021. But I feel like so many of the things that I learned from that book, I can see have been implemented at Syft. So that really did work as an instruction manual. And I think anyone who's thinking of starting their own business or who is joining a startup, it's a really, really useful book for you to read. Even though some of the things sound kind of unexpected in the book, but I think that's also what made it like a really interesting read.
I think there was one thing which I'm sure we'll touch on later, which I was like, what? And then the more I thought about it, it kind of shocks you into changing the way that you think. And I think even someone who, if you are starting something new, so obviously it's most relevant for a startup, but when I read it, I was kind of trying to build a division within a company. And for me, all the things were very relevant as well. So yeah, very cool. Okay, so what are some of the key takeaways that you got from this book?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the title. Why is it 0 to 1? The idea is basically the importance of innovation and how innovation doesn't just mean like changing something slightly from what's already there. It's really about finding something completely new, something revolutionary. It's kind of like tapping into the magic of secrets. I think that was something that I really took away, that startups should really be thinking of the like secrets or mysteries of something completely new, something people haven't thought of before. It's obviously not very easy to do.
But I mean, that's what makes it special, right?
Yes,
and what makes them
exactly.
really successful. It's like if everyone else is doing something and you just try to do it cheaper or slightly better, like
Yes.
it's not, you need to do something completely new.
It's not really going to differentiate you if you're just changing it slightly, like if you was just stealing someone else's idea. So you want to try to think of something completely new and original and amazing. And then I think another thing that the author Peter Thiel speaks about a lot is the importance of the founders, or often, there will be co-founders of the startup. And if you have this great idea for a business and you decide, look, I can't do this by myself, how do you know who to choose as your co-founder? So I remember he wrote that it helps to think of it kind of as a marriage. So if you think you're picking out your lifelong partner, maybe you want to spend a bit of time thinking about who you're going to go into business with. Preferably you want it to be someone that you know quite well. Maybe you don't want to sort of Vegas wedding, like just met this random person.
But it is so true, because if you think of a marriage, it's forever, and it impacts, where you stay, what you do every day, and how your finances are. And a co-founder can be the same, right? Because now you have to make decisions, and it's usually stressful decisions, hopefully some exciting ones, but like, do we hire, do we not hire, do we do this, do we not do this? And you're probably going to have some tough conversations. So yeah, it's not all going to be, roses and nice things all the time.
Yes. And I think that's why a lot of founders who work well together are people who've known each other for a long time. So often they're relatives or they're friends who've known each other for a long time. We've seen this with our co-founders. So I think that's the first thing. Finding a good co-founder is really important. But then the next thing is, it doesn't end there. It's really important who your team are, especially at the start. Like, these are people that you're going to rely on to actually make your dream a reality, and you want them to be as committed as you are, which can also be quite challenging.
No, agreed. I mean, yeah, it's hard to get people to buy into your dream as much, but you do really need those people, because when you're starting out, you can't be everywhere and do everything. And often I think in a startup, you don't know what it is that needs to be done. So yeah, that makes sense. So team and co-founders, you need to think carefully about.
Yeah, and I think somewhere in the book he talks about Thiel's law.
Okay.
Which is, I'll read it here. A startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. So if you've messed up the foundation, that's your founders, your original team, you're going to be in a bit of a pickle. Because it's much easier, to add great people on later. But if you've messed up something so foundational to your business, how do you then go back and patch that up?
I'm just thinking all analogies here, but if you think of a house,
Yes.
If your foundations are messed up, you can keep building, more walls and roofs, but it's not going to work. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it will eventually just kind of collapse.
Okay, cool. So we got to get it right in the start and make sure we've got the right people, which I think is something we talk a lot about on this podcast. Yes. So relevant as well. Cool. What else?
Some other things are the importance of power dynamics in your business. So clearly knowing, the difference between ownership and control, and figuring out who's responsible for what. There's clearly delineated roles, so that people can also take ownership over what they're responsible for. And I think having that clarity is very important.
And I think I haven't started a business, but I've kind of started other ventures. And I think often you think, oh, it's fine. We all work really well together. It'll be fine. But you need to have those tough conversations, or just formalize it, right?
Yes.
It doesn't need to be a long contract, but at least everyone is on the same page, because otherwise when, you go down the line and you thought that they knew what they needed to do, but they didn't, it can cause issues. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and at the same time, you don't want to kind of be micromanaging people. Yes. You do want to, at some point, let them go and do what they need to do. And then you need to be able to trust that they're doing the right thing.
Yes. Cool. So what else? Power, people?
Being 10 times better than your competitors. This is something I remember hearing a lot when I joined Syft. Yes. We were always trying to 10x everything. It's again that thing of not just trying to improve upon someone else. You really want to be so much better. So it's kind of a no-brainer as to why people would buy your product or use your service, whatever it is that you're doing in your business.
That makes, if you want 10x growth, which is another thing we often hear about, you have to have the, quality or the differentiator to go with it. So yeah, excellence is what I'm hearing.
And I saved a quote from the book here. The most destructive earthquakes are many times more powerful than all smaller earthquakes combined. The biggest cities dwarf all mere towns put together, and monopoly businesses capture more value than millions of undifferentiated competitors.
That was a deep one. And I'm going to ask you something on that, because I remember when I read the book, the thing that stood out to me was the word monopoly. So when I studied economics in first and halfway through second year, we learned that monopolies were not good. And, they could cause, people to be overcharged and all sorts of bad implications. But this book seems to disagree. So I don't know if you remember anything about that. Otherwise, I will share my insights.
I don't remember a huge amount, so I don't want to say things that are not true. But I think it does go back to the idea of, or in a sense, having monopoly over your one very good idea, that innovation that other people don't have. I'm going to swing this one back at you.
No, fair point. So I think for me, it was this interesting thing that when I read this title, I was like, monopolies are good. And I was like, my first and second year training was like, no, this is not true. But when you read it, the reason people think monopolies are bad is because it destroys consumer value, because the monopoly will charge a ridiculous price and all the citizens will suffer, right? But what they're talking about, from what I understood, is if you are providing something that no one ever had before, then you're providing opportunity. So for example, if we think of the internet, right? When the internet or someone came out, this new technology came out, no one else was providing it. But in that new technology, there were so many more opportunities for everyone to go and do it. And it meant that that person who comes with the new technology doesn't need to compete on price. So you can actually develop. Because if you start a new business and you need to keep cost cutting, you never have space to develop and do research and grow. So I think the moral of the story is, again, come back to what you said at the beginning, is come up with an original new idea that no one else is doing, so you don't have to compete on price. You can rather provide additional value, and it's not to become this evil monopoly that is, making money out of everyone, but rather this monopoly that is giving extra value. So that's what I got. My 2 cents.
I think it's also, it changes your perspective, just as that changes our perspective on the idea of a monopoly. It kind of makes me think of the podcast that we had with Kabir, where he said we shouldn't be focusing on unemployment and all the negatives. We should be thinking about the opportunities. And I think it's, again, if you have this brand new idea, you do have opportunities.
Agreed. No, makes sense. Okay, cool. What else in this book? Because we've still got 2 more to go through.
I think maybe then I will end with his 7 questions that a business must answer, and you can tell me if you agree with these.
Cool.
So the first one is, can you create breakthrough technology instead of just incremental improvements? So this is the 10x idea again. Is now the right time to start your business?
That is a very important one, because there's been many a great idea that came at the wrong time and people weren't ready for it. So good one to think about.
Are you starting with a big share of a small market?
Okay.
Do you have the right team? We spoke about how important that is. Do you have a way to both create and deliver your product?
Important, just an idea isn't enough. You actually have to be able to...
Yeah, how you're actually going to implement that and make it a reality.
And out there into the market.
Are you durable enough to make it 10 or 20 years into the future?
That is a tough one.
And have you found a unique opportunity that no one else has seized?
I think the one I just want to go back to is, are you starting with a big share of a small market? I think that was an interesting one for me. I think often when we think, me personally, of ideas, it's often like, okay, but only accountants would be interested in this. What about the rest of the market? Is that big enough? But I think often we rather, that's what he said in the book as well, rather focus on a small niche so you can become good at it than trying to kind of appeal to everyone. So you don't have to have a product that everyone in the world would want, but as long as you have that small market, but enough people would be interested, I think that's quite key.
And I think in terms of marketing, having that specific target audience is very helpful, because I don't know, how would you begin to write an advert that's just going to appeal to everyone? That's really, really difficult.
And how do you build you're never going to make everyone happy. Even within an accounting sphere, I know we struggle as well, because everyone will want something different. So now if you're trying to do everyone, every profession, very difficult.
Yeah, so niching can be your friend.
So I think hopefully you're interested in reading the book. There's still a lot of stuff in there, so go read it. But hopefully you got some cool ideas for going from 0 to 1. So next book
is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which I had actually seen his TED Talk on the same topic before, which is a really good TED Talk, so I would recommend that. I actually think Kabir also did that in his podcast.
Okay, cool. Reinforcing, if you didn't do it after Kabir mentioned it,
go watch it
now's your chance.
But really it's all about being purpose-driven. So the whole thing is, as the title says, you start with why. So he has this great diagram that he draws where you have the circle in the middle with why, which is your purpose, and then everything else that you do in your business branches out from there. So this is a really great way to retain customers, to retain staff as well, because the idea is that you are inspiring loyalty. So you have this clear purpose, everybody knows what your why is, and then that inspires them because they want to be involved in that. They want to be part of that.
Makes sense. I think especially we've spoken about this before in retaining staff in other podcasts, like especially the modern, what is it, the Gen Z or these days we want to have a reason to go to work. We don't want to just go in and get our paycheck. We want to do something that's useful and purposeful, and also then you'll get the right talent, because when someone joins, they'll know, oh, this is why the company exists. Yes. That aligns with my values, and that makes a lot of sense.
And it's something that he says you can also use in marketing. So he talks about the idea of inspiring people to buy versus manipulating them. Okay. And so when he talks about manipulation, it's things like dropping the price, running a promotion. I'm not saying that these are bad, these are common marketing tactics.
They have a place for sure.
But I think you've got to be really thoughtful about when you use them, and is there another way that you can inspire people to buy your product? Because kind of trying to manipulate them into getting it isn't going to always last the longest. Like say with Syft, if somebody signs up for Black Friday, that's great, but we've got to think of a way of why would they stay?
Because at some point you would hope that they would pay the full price.
Yes.
Or can you still provide the same level of service? And I think that comes through a lot with when you talk about pricing for accounting practices, because that's something we chat about a lot. Yes. It's value-based pricing or hourly billing. That's kind of the conversation. I know Jamie did recently with Lauren, I think.
Yes.
And the whole idea is your clients should be getting value, and we always talk about showing them how the service you're providing is helping them grow.
Yes.
That's very inspirational, as opposed to here's my bill and you're going to try cut me down. Now no one's inspired.
Exactly. So you're focusing on the value of what you're providing, what it can do for them. You're not trying to manipulate them by saying, oh, look how cheap we are.
And sometimes that is necessary to get people to see the purpose,
Yes.
So as you say, it does have a place, but definitely I don't think that should be your always go-to tactic.
And it shouldn't be your only tactic.
Yes. Interesting. Cool. What else is in the Start With Why book?
He has some interesting stuff about how we make decisions, and that we use the limbic part of the brain to make decisions.
What is the limbic part of the brain?
So this is where he says this is what we call our gut decisions, which sounds weird because your gut is here. But then,
your heart is
a brain-gut connection.
Yeah.
Cool. But so basically, the limbic brain is a part of the brain that makes decisions based on feeling, not on rationality. I know we like to always think that we make these very rational decisions, but it's not always the case.
Yeah, no.
And especially in terms of marketing and sales, often people will make quite big decisions, or daily, I suppose, everyday decisions, just based on some kind of gut reaction. So he has an interesting thing about adverts for laundry detergent. And they all go on about how our laundry detergent will make your whites whiter and your brights brighter, and they think that's why people are buying. And it's like, people say that they care about that, but in reality, you just want something that's going to make your clothes clean.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Yeah.
So then it's about, well, what does this advert make you feel? What does it inspire in you? There's something, it's like that idea of when brands like Coke maybe will show a lifestyle that you could have if you're drinking Coke. You're not going, yes, Coke is so healthy for me.
I can play football now and go on a yacht. Always the yacht
feeling, that it looks cool. If I were drinking Coke, it's now associated with that cool vibe, that cool lifestyle. So that was quite interesting. He says about the laundry detergent. And then he said, the limbic brain is good at making decisions, but it's not good at expressing these decisions linguistically. So if we're trying to explain why we've made this decision to buy that specific laundry detergent or to drink the Coke, it's sometimes a bit tricky.
Okay. I suppose that's a good way of checking if you've made a rational decision or if you've made an emotional one, if you can explain it to someone, one of those co-founders from the previous book. Cool. So yeah, what else can we learn from this book?
Selling is a bit like going on a date.
So we've got marriage and dates. What is this podcast?
I just love all of the analogies. I find analogies are very helpful.
You remember things much easier.
Exactly. You're trying to build trust with your consumer. It's just like when you go on a Tinder date, you're trying to build trust with your date. Why should they be with you and think that you are not a serial killer? Similar thing with a business. How can you inspire trust? And so when you're trying to sell your product, you need to make a good first impression as well.
But not a false first impression.
Yes.
Those Tinder profiles I don't think are always accurate. So then later it doesn't end so well. Maybe they buy the product, but then they don't stick around or something.
So you kind of want your marketing and all your promises that you've been making to reflect what you deliver, because otherwise that trust falls apart.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, we know about dating and marriage, so that's great. What else?
And then again, something that's also important in dating and marriage, knowing your values, knowing what you stand for. I think that's a big part of the whole start with why. You need to have an actual purpose that isn't just, I want to make money. Like there is something bigger. Yes, obviously that's an important part of running your business, but the thing that keeps customers coming back for more, the thing that helps you retain great staff isn't just, oh, can pay the bills now.
Agree. I think that is also going back to the first book, that whole idea of 0 to 1 is basically you need to have a reason for what you do, and that'll help you get through the hard times, but also help you make decisions, right? So you've got like 50 things you could do. Which one do you choose? The one that aligns best with your value is going to make a lot of sense.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay, so last one. We've got one more book. We're going to quickly sneak in. Yes. So it is called Building a Story Brand.
Yes. This is a book that our head of marketing gave us last year or the year before probably, but it really made an impact on me. It's about how you think about marketing from a customer perspective rather than from a product perspective. So especially, I don't know, our product is very clear. We're selling Syft Analytics, our accounting software, but if you're trying to sell that to a consumer, you can't actually start with, oh, look at our amazing reporting feature. Look at our budgeting feature. Someone who knows nothing about the software is going to, then why do I care about this? I don't know what you're talking about. So you need to kind of shift your approach. And this works for product marketing, but this also works for all kinds of marketing. I would say, like as an accountant, this is also very useful. You think about, what does your client actually need? What do they care about? What do they want? So you're thinking, how can I look at this from the customer's perspective? If I were a customer looking at this website, what would I want to see? I would want to see, oh, this is going to save me time. This is maybe going to help me generate more revenue. This is going to help me automate some of those tedious tasks that I don't like doing. So you change your marketing message to make, as Donald Miller says, you make them the hero of the story. So instead of thinking of yourself and your product as King Arthur, you are now Merlin. And you are guiding King Arthur on his journey, and you're going to help him find the Holy Grail or whatever. I think I'm mixing up my metaphors now, but
so many metaphors.
Love the analogies. And I think actually that's another thing that I really took away from the book is the importance of storytelling. Like we've been saying, the way that you remember things, the way that humans remember things, stories help so much with that.
No, amazing. I think that's super important. Often when I'm dealing with clients, like, what problem do you have that I can solve? Yes. And yeah, it is. You're the best friend in the movie. You're not the main character. Cool. So I hope you're inspired by those 3 books. Hopefully it'll get you reading a bit more. You took away some really great thoughts from it. I think just to summarize, it seems like we just did a rom-com where they date, they're the hero, not you, and they get married in the end. So that's a summary of those 3 books in my book, in my understanding. So Alex, what is the takeaway that you would like people to get from this podcast?
I think takeaway, not necessarily from everything that we've spoken about, but something that I wanted to add is that, as we've shown, you can learn so much from reading these different business books. But as I've found over my many years of reading, all books can really give you so much insight, and even fiction books can give you insight into people, which is a big part of any business that you're in, understanding how people operate, how to speak to people. So if there's anything you take away from today, it's my purpose, my why is to get you reading more, reading whatever it is, because you can always learn, whether it's about business, whether it's about people, and how you navigate this world. So that's what I wanted to end with.
Amazing.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.